Bichette is hitting better. Soto continues to hit. The bottom of the lineup has been hitting, so that's hasn't been the worst. But they have had some pitching injuries, and so when I turned over and it was 9-0, the game ended up being 12-0, and they got 6 hits. And a lot of that is from a kid that nobody really is talking about, this Chase Burns. I saw him last year. Kid throws upwards of 100 miles an hour. Great off-speed stuff. Still pretty raw. But in 14 starts this year, and I'm a big team win guy, for the Reds to have 34 wins on the season, they've won 10 of Burns' starts, including last night. So Burns in 14 starts, 10 team wins. He's 8-1 with just a hair over 2 ERA. He's going to make the All-Star team. This kid's on his way to make the All-Star team. Now, the Reds have slowed his development at the major league level. I looked at his game logs. Going back to March, around 80 pitches, worked up to 85. In May, in June, letting him go around 90, 95, and now he's upwards of 100. So that's a very kind of slow development for this season for this kid. So he's going 6 or 7 innings because he strikes out a lot of guys. I mean, he's not quite Mizorowski or Skeens or Sanchez, but he's got that talent, man. As Hunter Green continues to try to get back from another injury, this kid has come in and solidified his spot in the rotation as the ace. To be 8-1 on an under 500 team and no one's talking about you, come into New York or face the New York Mets with that lineup of some guys that can hit pretty well, some guys that have been around like Simeon and some of these other guys have been around for a minute. But Soto, Bichette, I mean those guys are all-stars. Yeah. That to do what he did last night, to, again, high pitch count and only getting 15 outs, I'm down on that kind of stuff. But once again, he's learning at the major league level. He's learning how to command his off-speed stuff. He's learning how to command his high velocity and locate. But, man, if this kid continues to stay healthy, he's going to be an all-star for a few years.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Look, him highly touted. There was a lot of hype around Chase Burns. Struggled early, but it's nice to see he's fine. It. Heck, like you said, could be an all-star. This is a Mets team that makes no sense to me, boys, because they take 2 of 3 against Atlanta, who has the best record in still all of baseball, if not the National League, and then you put up this stinker last night against a Reds team.
It's just a lack of focus. It really is.
Complete lack of focus. A Reds team that's 500 at home is not that good to where they're outscoring you by 12 runs and 9 by the
and
third
like a
inning.
40-year-old guy gets 6 RBI against you and cracks some home runs and Suarez and the only reason you brought him in was because you love him and he's a fan favorite and you think he could maybe hit you 30 home runs.
Home run guy.
I mean he's and the fact that he's hitting over 220 I think is gravy for this guy because he's a product of this era. This is an era of analytics where 220 would be 280 when I played. And, they don't value batting average. They don't value on base percentage. They value gap to gap and home runs and driving the ball with authority with 2 strikes. This is a different era. So, but the Mets, like you said, to lay a stinker, This just shows you that maybe Mendoza and his coaching staff they fired his coaching staff underneath him, which I think is deplorable. They put their own people in there that I wouldn't trust. If I'm Mendoza, I'd be like, listen, these guys are reporting back to David Stearns, and this goes back to before Steve Cohen bought the Mets, and you had the Wilpons. There was nothing but cutthroat, backstabbing BS by the coaching staff that got Willie Randolph fired when I first took this job 14 years ago. This feels identical to that, where these people are manipulating the lineups, the pitching staff. They overplayed their hand with too many trades. My big thing is, Michael, is when you make that many moves you know, it's hard. Everybody in spring training must have had like a hello, my name is tag on, you know, because they're coming from all these different organizations, and then you throw them together and you're like, okay, you guys are now in the largest media, you know, the capital of the world. You know, one guy is going to make $765 million. Another guy is going to come in and be making 43 or 45 million, whatever Bichette's making. And then the rest of you guys scurry around for whatever you're making. And then, you know, try and go out there and win with a pitching staff that these guys are constantly getting injured. There's no, you know, foundation to this pitching staff. So I just think that it was a badly constructed team to begin with. I would have said that about the Yankees like 5 years ago when they had too many guys striking out. Yeah. That's what we see right now with the Mets. Too many guys with 2 strikes, can't put the ball in play, can't drive in runs with 2 outs. This is not a team that even if they did make the postseason, they wouldn't get out of the first round.
But a team that's 30, you shouldn't be 32-40 with everything you just said. With the amount of
40
money,
and 32 at least.
Yeah, you're 32-40 with the guys like Juan Soto, Bo Bichette, proven veteran hitters now at this point in this league.
Bo's finally hitting the last month.
Yeah, at least Bo has finally decided to start hitting as well. And I don't know if there are some million excuses you can throw their way, but guess who's back on the mound tonight for the Mets to try to be their savior? Kodai Senga himself with his first start since April 26th, 0-4 with a 9 ERA. Another guy who great at one point and now
overpromised, underdelivered
completely. He's just been really bad. He can't find the strike zone when he's out there at all. No command, or when he leaves it over the plate, guys are just tattooing him. And I'm eager to see what kind of performance he has tonight, because Brady Singer's going for the Reds, and you know Singer's got a 5.6 ERA, so the Mets can hopefully you know actually score and get some runs off of him when they play tonight.
Yeah, Kodai Senga starting tonight for Mets fans doesn't exactly instill a lot of confidence or hope to be watching at home on TV. But like you said, you know, not exactly an elite arm going in terms of Brady Singer on the other side of the bump. He's had his struggles this year and even last year since coming across from Kansas City.
Yes.
But this Mets team, man, I just don't know where you turn. Obviously, the wallet isn't a problem. They have the highest payroll in baseball. They're littered with star-studded talent from Juan Soto to Bichette. They brought in Semien and who else did they bring? Polanco. He's been injured. Yep. The injury bug has been bothering
Lewis
them
Robert
as well.
Jr.
They have guys, but it's not just the payroll and making bad decisions in terms of throwing money elsewhere. It's also, like we touched on last week and the week prior, they're also messing. They messed with McLean's delivery.
Yep.
And now his tunneling. They talk about tunneling and tunneling your pitches. He was elite last year.
He's a shell of himself.
He was an all-star last year, and now he's a shell of himself, like you said,
Let me stop you there, Nick. One of the biggest problems is today's player as opposed to my day. We didn't listen to the coaches.
They listen too much.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't listen to my coaches. My first major league pitching coach told me when I was 19. Remember, I was a first round pick. 19 years old. He said, "You suck. You'll never pitch in the big leagues." At 19. And so 4 years
Thanks
later,
for the confidence boost, coach.
4 years later, that guy was my pitching coach in the major leagues. Should I listen to him now? As I worked my ass off.
Did somebody say awkward?
Went to Puerto Rico twice in the winter. Ed Figueroa taught me a great curveball to go against my fastball, and I could locate everything even back then. I had people like George Bamberger from the Mets, Joe Altobelli from the Orioles in that same, it was like an extended spring area of 8 teams down in St. Petersburg, Florida, came up and said, "Don't listen to that guy." They heard the conversation. They were appalled. And they said, no, as hard as you throw, learn how to locate, work on your mechanics so you can repeat them, and fix your own mistakes. So what I did as a player is I learned to fix my own mistakes as I went along. And yeah, I would take things, Larry Rothschild, who's the Yankees pitching coach for many years, was my pitching coach for a while. Stan Williams came in. He played with Drysdale and Koufax. I took things from them. I respected them. But the first guy, I was like, this guy's BS. You can't trust everybody and everything that comes out of their mouth. So some of these players, I blame them. If you have been kicking ass and taking names at the major league level as a hitter, would you change your swing and your mechanics and stuff?
At the drop of a dime.
No, absolutely not.
No way.
And now like everybody wants to take credit for Aaron Judge. There's this whole thing on social media where this one guy, Teacherman, well, now some of his disciples are now sprinkled throughout professional baseball, teaching that same high level, batting angle approach that has failed at the major league level and the lower levels because it's a swing and miss. And I would have loved that if I had guys that had uppercuts, and there were some guys that had uppercuts when I played. I would have loved that. You could easily strike those dudes out. The thing about Aaron Judge is he's a unicorn, and he doesn't need anybody's help. Just like Soto, just like all these other, like Shohei. Shohei doesn't even take batting practice in public. He does everything in a cage by himself and his personal guy that he handpicked. Everything he does is to make himself a better player. So these other guys mentally, I think that they just trust in other people's opinions too much, and that's what gets a lot of these young guys into trouble.
Yeah, it does. And it's the quote from your former manager, the great Pete Rose. I love when he was on MLB Network, and he's basically talking about what you just said. You listen to all these coaches like, no, stop. Your swing's what got you to the big leagues.
Yeah.
Choke up on the bat, or he's like, move back in the sits, move towards the plate, move up, move back. Like that's what it really comes down to, right? Trust yourself. And like you as a first-round pick, like you're obviously going to trust your own intuition and trust the skills that got you there. If you're a first-round pick, I mean, outside of a scout and these guys
and
recognizing
to your point,
it.
I trusted the scouts' analysis of me.
Yeah,
was more about my mental intuition than my physical throwing 95 miles an hour. They were like, no, this kid is mentally tough, and he's going to bounce back. He's got resilience. And I think so many of these guys don't believe, this is why I brought up the Troy coach. The Troy coach or Jim Penders, they want resilient kids in their program. They want kids that were D2, D3, kids that come from JUCOs, and kids that they're not going to come and have entitlement. There's some big leaguers that are like that. That Lewis Robert Jr., if you, for the last 5 years, has underachieved with the White Sox, that's a guy you bring to the Mets. And it's no disrespect. It's like, but now you're bringing him into a clubhouse with headstrong guys like Juan Soto. And I'm not saying that I'm the biggest Juan Soto fan, but Juan Soto is like a lone wolf. Okay, this guy doesn't want to be with the pack. That's fine. Bo Bichette's more of a pack guy. He's like, he loved Vlad Jr. and all those guys with the Blue Jays. So you got to surround him with that. Simeon's a world champion with the Rangers. You brought in some right guys, but maybe they don't all mesh well. And now I'm looking at their injury list. Holy crap. I mean, Clay Holmes, 60-day. Robert Jr., 60-day. Polanco, 60-day. Senga just coming back. Lindor's still out. That you can't control that if you're Mendoza. I can't fire Mendoza when, a quarter of my lineup's sitting on their ass in the training room.
No, you can't. And it's just, it's like the Red Sox. There's so many bigger problems with this Mets team that go beyond the product that's out there on the field.
Upstairs, Michael.
It's upstairs.
No one blames the analytics or the GM anymore.
No, exactly. And I love that it's a good line that you use, that players have to trust themselves and maybe not listen to everything that they're hearing from, because they're probably hearing from realistically how many different guys. Even pitchers, hitters, or whatever, different coaches. Not even probably
I
just their
could see Manny
pitching
Machado and some of the Padres revolting against their hitting instructor the last 2 years was fired. They were in the top 10 in batting average the last couple of years. This year they're in the bottom 10% or bottom 10 teams. And and I'm not saying it's the hitting coach's problem. I think he's giving you advice. You don't have to take it. So it's the same thing with the pitch comm. When somebody gives you a pitch comm command, you don't have to throw that pitch. You could shake it off.
It's a suggestion.
Yeah, it's a suggestion. So when you're winning and losing with that guy back there, if you're like, let's just say you're 4 or 6 games under 500 as a starting pitcher now, 75 games into the season, okay? You have yourself to blame. You can't blame the catcher. You can't blame the pitching coach. You've been accepting these pitch comm suggestions. That's on you. If your ERA, like you said, with Singer's got great stuff. If you have a 5.5 ERA, you shouldn't even be in the big leagues. You should be in the minor leagues working on your craft, like Brian Bayo. And shame on you.
Yeah.
I just say shame on you because you're not trying hard enough to call the game yourself. The guys with the index cards, that there's so much mental weakness going on out there. It's an epidemic. So I can't blame the coaches for every mistake that these guys make. These guys have to start saying, I'm hitting 250 at bats into the season. Shame on me. I've got to make a change.
Yeah, and accountability is big, too. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, we're harping on the Mets right now, obviously, because they're mightily
they're
underperforming.
A microcosm of the big leagues.
Correct. But we see it, Michael and I see it with our Yankees over the weekend. Anthony Volpe almost single-handedly cost them a game. It was a 2-out situation where he's on first base as the runner. You need to score that run to go ahead in the game. I think it was a blue base hit to right field, and he's jogging, waiting to see if the ball's going to be caught because he didn't understand how many outs there were. He thought it was a one out inning.
Right.
It's 2 outs. You are running on contact no matter what. Your objective is to get to home and score.
Thing.
Yeah.
How do you not know how many outs there are?
Like you said, it's the Yankees, the Mets, the style of baseball which is being played. They're promoting batting 200 on the year, making errors night in and night out, not knowing, having situational awareness. It's a microcosm of Major League Baseball today. I don't think it should be rewarded.
No.
I think there's way too much leash and leeway given by a lot of these front offices to players who, quite frankly, don't belong in the starting lineup every night. And like you said, Rob, some of these players really need to get sent down to Triple or Double A and perfect their craft before they can make the jump back to the big leagues.
Well, I think they need to be humbled.
Definitely.
I mean, if you listen to these guys in the NBA Finals, a lot of those players on both sides have been humbled at some point. That Dylan Harper, he was humbled during the season, and you heard Vassell talk about that, saying, "Hey, listen, this guy has worked his ass off to get to where he is, and getting 25, 30 minutes in the championship series. The fact that a 20-year-old guy was getting that much playing time and almost getting De'Aaron Fox out of there for the starting lineup, that's something that they got to think about."